Yesterday we celebrated Tu B'Shvat, and even though Tu B'Shvat passed, but nevertheless the whole week we have the same energy of Tu B'Shvat. And not only that, we have a lot more to learn from this holiday, and happens to be that Tu B'Shvat is just an excuse to learn, but nevertheless it has what to teach us a lot that we need to really take to consideration for our own spiritual growth. And we know that the world is divided into 4 groups. We have the lowest of all, that is our inanimates. Then we have one level above it, which is vegetation. Then we have another level above vegetation, which is animals. And then the 4th and highest is humans. Even though some of the humans behave like on the 3rd category, but nevertheless, we have inanimate, vegetation, animals, and humans. Now, when you're looking at this structure of the division of 4 levels, who do you think we are the most close to as humans? Then, of course, almost any person will answer the animals, right? They're close to us in the hierarchy. But not only that, we're all surrounded with animals. People have dogs, cats, horses, fish, and I'm not talking about eating now the animals, but we have a lot of animals. If you're a farmer, you have goats and cows, and we're constantly surrounded with animals. Needless to say, how animals assist us in many different ways. Guide dogs and therapy animals, horses, or whatever it is, and needless to say that we're much more closer to animals. If somebody would ask, or somebody would wonder. And not only that, we see that the Torah also describes us at many times as animals. And there are many different places that we see that we as humans, have a great connection to animals. If you go all the way back to the beginning of the Torah, when Yaakov was blessing all his kids, then he was defining them, so to say, or adding to their description an animal. And he says that Yehuda is a lion's cub, a gur aryeh. He's saying that your son is a lion. And he says about Issachar that he's a chamor garem, a donkey. Are you calling your son a donkey? I have a relative that he's Israeli, and he moved when he was very young after the army to Canada. And he had, got married, has kids, but the kids never spoke Hebrew. They always spoke in English. Many, many years later, one of the kids came to Israel. He was in his early 20s already. And we went somewhere, and we saw a donkey, so somebody said chamor. So he says, what's this word? So we told him, chamor is a donkey. He's like, my whole life my father was calling me chamor, and now I understand what it is. So Yaakov was calling Issachar chamor. Why are you calling your son chamor? No, he didn't say it in a derogatory way. Rather, he said chamor is a donkey is a very powerful animal. Whatever you put on it, he will carry. Has a lot of determination. He will walk for miles. But nevertheless, so we see that Yaakov was calling as Judah, he called him a lion's cub. Issachar, he called him a donkey. Naphtali, he said he's swift like a deer, ayala. And Dan is like a snake. So even Yaakov was already kind of describing his kids as animals. And not only that, there are people that their names are like animals. A very common name is Aryeh. Aryeh is a lion. And Tzvi, that's a pretty common name. And Zev and Wolf, and there's many names that are names of animals. Not only that, the Rambam says in the book Moreh Nevuchim that some people actually look like animals. And sometimes when you look at people, they do have the shape of an animal. And sometimes the resemblance is unbelievable. But nevertheless, even Rambam in his book, Moreh Nevochim, says, yeah, sometimes people look like animals. And actually, this is our source where people were called as animals. Because before that, if you go before that, it wasn't such a common name to be called like animals. But now, in our generation, it's for sure Aryeh and Wolf and Zev and so many others. So kind of around that time, then people started getting names like an animal. Now, where else do we see animals? In the famous prophecy of Yechezkel, he sees a vision, and he sees the chair of glory, the Merkava, and he sees a face of a human, but he also sees a face of an eagle, and an ox, and a lion. So we see again the connection between the humans and the animals. Where else? In the book of Kohelet, Shlomo HaMelech finishes the book by saying, "Umutar Adam min habehema ayin." We are like animals, basically. This is what he's saying, Shlomo HaMelech. That we and animals are the same thing. Just that we have a little bit more da'at. Da'at means part of the intelligence that we can talk and think for ourselves and so forth. But nevertheless, we see in many different places that we have a strong connection to animals. And comes now a big wonder, because yesterday we celebrated the holiday, which is the head of the year, the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah La'ilanot, for the trees. How come we don't have a holiday for the animals? Should have a Rosh Hashanah L'chayot. Should have a day in the year where we celebrate something for the animals. Because if so, why are we celebrating a holiday for the vegetations, for the trees? So it's a great wonder, how come we're so close to animals, such a connection, but we don't have a holiday for the animals, and the trees, somebody looks like a tree. Nobody looks like a tree. And it's also pretty rare, although in Hebrew, some people are called like a tree. And one of them is me. My name is Alon. Alon is an oak tree. And in Hebrew, in Israel, a very common name is Oren. Oren is another type of a tree. And there's Ilan. Ilan is a general name for trees. Specifically trees that bear fruit. That's now the holiday we celebrate now, Tu B'Shvat, is Chag LeIlanot. It's the holiday, the head of the year for trees that bear fruit. Nevertheless, my brother's name is Amir. Amir is the top of the tree. I mean, we do have girls' names, Narkis, and Narkis is violet, not violet, that's how you say this purple flower, violet. And there's Vered and Shoshana. But nevertheless, what we want to know is how come the trees has a holiday and the animals don't have a holiday. So if this is the case, if a trees have a holiday, so what's our connection to the trees? Must be that we have some type of connection to the trees. And nevertheless, we do know that we do have a connection to the trees. Because in the book of Devarim, in Parashat Shoftim, it says, Ki ha'adam etz hasadeh. Because a man is the tree of the field. This is you can find it in the Parasha of Shoftim, but it's in chapter 20, verse 19. And it says, Ki ha'adam etz hasadeh. The man is the tree of the field. So, where exactly I'm a tree? Why do I look like a tree? Or what's my connection to the tree? Now we do know, based on halakha, and this is also brought down in a book called Sefer Hasidim, but this is also halakha, we know that we're not allowed to cut trees that bear fruit. We're not allowed to do that. You can cut a tree that doesn't bear fruit to use it for wood, but a tree, an orange tree, apple tree, and so forth, we're not allowed to cut. The way to do it is to take it out from the ground and then plant it somewhere else. The only time you're allowed really to cut it is if it causes a problem, if the tree is sick. Sometimes the tree is very sick and it can affect the other trees, and many other times that we can cut a tree. But usually we're not allowed to cut the tree. Tu B'Shvat starts, where do we see it the first time? Because it's not a biblical holiday. You don't find any reference to Tu B'Shvat in the Torah. And not only in the Torah, in the entire Tanakh, you're not going to find any information about Tu B'Shvat. The first time where we find any information about the Torah, about Tu B'Shvat, is in the Mishnah. and in a very technical explanation. The first time it's fine is when it gives us the rules for farmers and anyone who does agriculture. So we don't find Tu B'Shvat in the Torah, we don't find Tu B'Shvat in the Tanakh or any other source, but in the Mishnah, in the Oral Torah, when it's giving us information about what we need to do in the fields, in orchards and so forth. Now, we know that the beginning of the year is Aleph Tishrei, the beginning of Tishrei, even though in a month-wise, the first month of the year is Nisan, not Tishrei. But we do know that the beginning of the year is the first day of Tishrei, and the first day of the agriculture month, it's the 15th day of Shvat. We do have 4 Rashei Shana, 4 times of the year that is called the head of a year. We'll go through that a little bit later. But for us to know, and this is also brought down in the Mishnah, that the head of the year is Aleph Tishrei, but nevertheless, the agriculture first of the year is Tu B'Shvat. And it goes by when the crops are starting to bud, or when the fruit are starting to, when the stems are coming out, or when the fruits are starting to bud. But what's amazing here, and what's important here, is that this halacha is only for the residents of the land of Israel. When it comes to masrot and trumot and everything that has to do with the land, it's only in the land of Israel. We don't have this rule anywhere else out of Israel. Now, besides that Israel is our land, Israel has been and always been this Jewish dream. Everywhere you go, you say the word Israel to Jewish people, oh, my dream is one day to come to Israel. And that's what you hear from many people. We are the lucky ones that we actually live here. And if you don't realize how lucky you are, then I will remind you today how lucky you are. Because most people have a huge challenge coming to Israel. And living in Israel is a huge merit. It means that if you hear, then the Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed you to be here. And Rambam even says that just by living in Israel, it's a mitzvah. Then every second that you're breathing here, it's a mitzvah. So, but many millions of Jews around the world, and even non-Jews, their dream is to come to Israel, to come to this wondrous place. Now, if you're going back to the beginning in the Torah, we see the great connection that our lineage have to the land of Israel. 75 years Avraham Avinu lives in Ur Kasdim, and finally the Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him, leave your place. I know you have history there, I know you have friends, I know you have property, I know you are the chief rabbi of Ur Kasdim, but it's time for you to leave. Now imagine, this is a 75-year-old man. Each and every one of us, with no exception, grew up somewhere and had to leave. Especially in this room, I don't know about the viewers, but at least in this room, everyone in this room grew up somewhere and had to leave. And that's usually the majority of people, especially Jews. I mean, people from many different nations, they live their life, all their life in the same country. Jews, for whatever reason, we wonder a lot. But at least I can easily say that in this room, each and every one of us grew up somewhere and then left. Leaving is not so easy. Relocating to a completely different country, it's even much more harder. When you're moving from street A to street B, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you leave from your place of birth and going to a completely different place. Avraham Avinu, 75 years, lives in Ur Kasdim, and Hashem tells him, go to Israel. Go to the land that I will show you, the land that you're going to settle there, and I'm going to give you this land. And sure enough, with no question, he packs his bags and he goes. Right after that, we see his son Yitzchak. Yitzchak was a famine in Eretz Israel. He wanted to go to Mitzrayim. Hashem tells him, you're not allowed to leave Israel. He says, you are a holy sacrifice. You are lat mimah, a whole sacrifice. You can't leave Eretz Israel. This is the place for you. Same thing with Yaakov, when he had to run away from Esav. Finally, after 20 years, he has a dream. And what is in the dream? Hashem tells him, go back to Eretz Israel. That's it, you're done here. You finished what you need to do here, and go back to Eretz Israel. So, we see that we already have a very strong connection to this land. Very interestingly, there's a book. It's called the Kuzari. The book Kuzari was written by Rabbi Yehuda Levi. And he says there, he points out something very, very interesting. He says, all the prophecies were given on Eretz Israel or about Eretz Israel. If you're looking at all the prophecies. First of all the prophecies were given in Eretz Israel. There were a few exceptions that were prophecies outside of Eretz Israel. But all the prophecies are on Israel or are about Israel. Or in some type of a connection to Eretz Israel. Now, we all, Baruch Hashem, have the unbelievable merit to live here, but it's not easy to live in Eretz Israel. It comes with a high price. The people here are not so easy. The living here is always not so easy, even though when you go out of Israel, you actually start appreciating, okay, so people here are a little bit rough on the edges. And to many people say, oh, it's very hard here financially. I don't think it's so. I think it's hard everywhere. It's hard if your mazal is to be hard. So maybe the materialism here is not so accessible. But anyways, the materialism around the world is a fake materialism. So it doesn't really matter. But nevertheless, to be honest, as much as I love Israel, it's not an easy place to live. There's always difficulties in many different things. But living here is an unbelievable merit. I thank Hashem every day that brought me back here. I was born here. And I lived here 23 years, and then I left to the United States, and I was like Yaakov. I went to the United States, came back with a wife and kids. He came back with 12 kids. I came back with 6 kids. And he came Rabbi with a lot of sheep. I didn't get any sheep. And but nevertheless, I always related to Yaakov how he went to Haran, to a disgusting place, to find his wife, get his kids, and come back. So, but I lived in America 18 years, almost half my life. And finally now, back to Eretz Israel, almost 4 years. Living in Israel is a huge merit. And I'm going to repeat it as much as I need to, because the ones that live here need to understand how lucky they are, and the ones who don't live here need to understand how fast they need to make a change and come here. So, but nevertheless, there is a price for this huge merit. And this price is a certain mitzvah that the Torah tells me to do, and this mitzvah is called maaser, that I have to give a percentage of what I make in the land of Israel from the crops. And this is a very great mitzvah. Nowadays, people give 10% of what they make from their money. This is not the maaser I'm talking about. This is tzedakah. Maaser is when you take from your crops, from your fruit, from your vegetables, and you give it. In our generation, we don't have a kohen, we don't have Bet HaMikdash, but nevertheless, we still have to follow the laws of maaserot. Now, the laws of the land, we'll call it, are divided into 2 major laws. One of them is called orla, and one of them is called maaser. Orla is the mitzvah that when you plant a tree, the first 3 years you can't eat from the fruit. Only on the 4th year you can eat from the fruits. And maaser, 6 years in a row, we have to give percentage of the crops or the fruit, and then the 7th year we stop. This is a sabbatical year. So we see already a connection between the both of them, that they're both dependent on years. Depending on the orla, you have to wait 3 years. Sabbatical year is every 7 years. 6 years you have to give from your crops. Now, with the orla, I'm not going to go too much into the details. I actually gave a class a few months ago about orla when we were learning the laws of kashrut of food. But the rule is that you plant a tree, you have to wait 3 years. The reason why you wait 3 years, because the first 3 years the fruit are not good quality. And on the 4th year, when it's the first year when the fruit have reached to the best quality, you don't eat those fruits. You take these fruits, it's called neta revai, and you take it to Yerushalayim and you give it to Yerushalayim, to the Kohen. Or you eat it in Yerushalayim. And only on the 5th year, okay, then you can take it. It's your fruit already. Now, the maaser, that's a little bit of a more sophisticated halacha and mitzvah. First of all, at the time of Bet HaMikdash, they gave about 20% maaser. People here are crying that they have to pay the IRS. So what do you think was it when we had Bet HaMikdash? They paid about 21% of what they made. You make now shekels. They had cucumbers and oranges and rice and potatoes and whatever it was. But nevertheless, very soon Mashiach is going to come. We're going to have to go back to Masrot. This is going to one of the first things that we're going to have to start applying again. We have a Kohanim, Levim, Beit HaMikdash, right away start giving Masrot, start giving from your fruit. Besides the fact that we kind of going to go back to living a much better life. We're not going to have all this processed, disgusting fruit. We're now go back to good fruit and good normal food. Nevertheless, a little bit about the Masrot, it's important to know. Like I said, they paid about 20-21% of what they made in Maaser. 1.5% was what's called Truma. And above that would be given Masrot. And the way it's divided, just very briefly, so we have the idea, 10%, you have an orchard now, you have now avocados, you have oranges, you have a field with tomatoes or potatoes. 10% of it you put aside and you have to give it to the Levi, to the Levite in Yerushalayim. Nowadays we'll probably send it by FedEx. 2,000 years ago, then they had to put it on carriages or wagons and ship it to Yerushalayim. But 10% goes to the Levi, and this is called Maaser Rishon, the first Maaser. Then you have another two types of Masrot, Maaser Sheni and Maaser Ani. Maaser Sheni means a second Maaser, and Maaser Ani is a Maaser to the poor person. The Maaser Sheni is divided as follows. We have 7-year cycle, 6 years where we give Masrot, the 7th year it's a Shemitah, a sabbatical year. With Maaser Sheni, we calculate that the first and the second year of the sabbatical cycle, and the fourth and the fifth year of the sabbatical cycle, this is Maaser Sheni. The third year and the sixth year, this goes to Maaser Ani. And up until today, that's what we do. When you divide your fruit from Masrot, that's how we calculate it. Now I know here a lot of people, what they do is they just go to the supermarket when they have a certification and they don't worry about it. But nevertheless, I'm just telling you here, for you here local, if you go to the market on Wednesday, you should, to the shuk, you should be aware that probably 50 to 80% of the crops you're buying are not with Masrot. And there's going to be a lot of doubts in it. So, especially that a lot of them that come to sell in the market are Arabs. And it doesn't mean that it's their land. If you're buying from a land of a non-Jew, and here in Israel we have Arabs or Bedouins or Druzim or whatever we have around us, then you don't have to give Masrot. But a lot of them, they're not the farmers. They're just dealers. And they buy the crops for cheap and they come here and they sell it to you. So don't be confused when you're coming and buying from a stand and you're saying, oh, the guy's Arab, I don't have to give Masrot. Yeah, but maybe he's a dealer and he bought it from a Jewish farmer that was about to lose the crops and he sold it for very cheap. That's what they're doing. If I have a land and I have cucumbers and I have now 10 tons of cucumbers and I can't sell them, then of course I'll sell them before they rot. I'll sell them in a 50% off. So a lot of the dealers here, they come and they buy cheap fruit. Cheap because, not because it's not good quality, because the farm is about to lose it, then they come and they sell it to you. Now this is chayav b'masrot. But anyways, I gave a whole series of classes, how you give, when you say it with a blessing, without a blessing, something that you need to know. Because I mentioned many times that in Israel, eating fruit that you was not given maaser on it is worse than eating chazir, eating pig. So, and most people are not so strict about it. And they count on the supermarket or the greengrocer. And better not to count on anybody. It's not big quantities. Better to do the maaser by yourself. Because there's a doubt, you do it without a blessing, but you still do the ritual and the act, and that's it, and you finish. So you lose a very small percentage of what because 10% anyways, we don't give it, we keep it, we redeem it. But nevertheless, the way it worked at the time of Beit HaMikdash, the first and the second, the fourth and the fifth year of the sabbatical cycle, this was called Maaser Sheni, and you would take the crops to Yerushalayim and eat it in Yerushalayim. Now, what happens if you have 20 tons of potatoes? How can you take 20 tons of potatoes? Nowadays you have trucks. How did they do it 2,000 years ago? So they used to sell the fruit and then take the money and redeem it, go to Yerushalayim with the money, buy food in Yerushalayim and then eat it in Yerushalayim. So you only have to transport the money. And this money is called Hekdesh. Hekdesh means that it's holy. You're not allowed to touch this money. In our generation, what we do is we do something similar. Is we just redeem it. You take a coin and you redeem the value of the fruit that you are separating, and that's it. And this coin, you can't touch it. This is a holy coin. This is also Hekdesh. But nevertheless, this was Maaser Sheni. Then you have another Maaser, and a Maaser comes from the word Asirit. Asirit is a tenth, because you give 10%. Then you have Maaser Ani, that comes on the 3rd and the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle. This you give to a poor person. And we still do it in our generation. In the 3rd and the 6th year, you take a portion and you give it to a poor person. Or what you can do is take the fruit to yourself and evaluate it. How much would these 10 oranges cost? 5 shekels? Give 5 shekels to a poor person. But nevertheless, we still do it up until today, and you need to know all the rules. But what's important to see from here, because what I'm giving you now is a very brief overview. This is not with too many details, but what we want to see from here is that we are dependent on years here. Every time that we apply the mitzvah of Maaser Orla, we have to know in which year we are. I don't know if you notice, but on Sunday when we gave the class about Tu B'Shvat, the only one who had it in the back of her mind was Karen, who said, you have to remind us what do we need to do now, because Tu B'Shvat is a cutoff date when we switch from one year to another year. And she was smart to remember. She has the trees in her backyard, oranges and whatever, and she needs to know. You have a tree in the backyard and you're eating from your tree, or if you grow it yourself, you need to know. And Tu B'Shvat is the cutoff time. So we need to know about that. But nevertheless, we see that the mitzvah of, so to say, paying for living in Israel, which is giving part of my food, it's dependent on years. And I need to know exactly in which cycle we are, and what year are we in, and so forth. Now, practical question is when is the agriculture year cycle starts? Because if I'm calculating now Maasrot, let's say now I have cucumbers and I need to give Maaser. I need to know if I'm in the 1st or the 2nd year, then I give Maaser Sheni. If I'm already in the 3rd year, then it has to be Maaser Ani. It's a different Maaser. I need to know which year are we in. You think we're going by 2019? This is irrelevant to this calculation. It's Tafshin Ayin Tet. Now, but what is the year definition? From Tishrei to Tishrei? Or when I define the year? I need to know. So this is a technical question. Most of the trees, they grow their fruit at the end of the winter. This is most of the trees. But there are some trees that they grow their fruit, and that's in the beginning of the winter. For example, one of them is peaches. Peaches, they grow in the beginning of the fruit. They don't grow after they grow, like the peaches you're going to be eating in the summer, they grow before the winter. And there's another type of fruit. I'm probably going to mess up the name. The name in Hebrew is shesek. In English, I think it's called lakut, something like that. So if you recognize the name, then correct me. It's Loquat. Loquat. So in Hebrew, it's called shesek. Very sweet, small. Shesek also grows in the beginning of the winter. So now what happens when I eat it in the summer? I need to know when exactly the fruit was, it started budding. Nevertheless, why do I need to know that? Because I need to know to which year they belong in order to give Maaser. And the 15th day of Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, is the cutoff. This is the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year for the fruit, for the trees that bear fruit. That's why it's called Rosh Hashanah La'ilanot and not Rosh Hashanah La'itzim. Etz is a general tree, and Ilan is a tree that has fruit. So 15th of Shvat is the cutoff date for the trees that give fruit. Now, everything that grew till the 15th of Shvat is the previous year. Everything that grew from the 15th of Shvat is this year. So I need to know all that when it comes to Masot. Now I told you there are 4 heads of the year. Arba Rashei Shana. It says in the Talmud we have 4 Rosh Hashanah. The first Rosh Hashanah is the one that we all know of. This is the first day of Tishrei. This is Rosh Hashanah for us. When we get judged, the entire world, humankind gets judged. It's also Rosh Hashanah for the year of Shemitah. That's how I know how to calculate sabbatical cycles. For Jubal year, Jubilee, Yovel. This is the first day of Tishrei. Then there's another Rosh Hashanah. It's called Rosh Hashanah LaMelachim. This is the first day of Nisan, Aleph Nisan. This is the Rosh Hashanah for kings and for festivals. Rosh Hashanah Melachim VeLaRegalim. And there's a whole explanation. I believe I did a class already last year explaining each one of these Rosh Hashanah, what it really means. Now we're just going to go briefly about them. Then you have the first day of Elul, which is the Rosh Hashanah for Maaser Behema, for the Maaser that you give from animals. And you have the 15th day of Shvat, which is Rosh Hashanah Leilanot, the head of the year for the trees. There is an argument in the Talmud between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai if it's Aleph Shvat or 15th of Shvat. Bet Shammai says it's Aleph of Shvat, Bet Hillel says it's the 15th of Shvat. Each one gives their explanation, and the halacha is that we celebrate it on the 15th of Shvat. So what I said now is a very brief overview about the idea of Masrot, Truma, the land of Israel, and how do we count it, conduct it. This is very, very brief what I gave now. This is a general overview. But it brings us to a question, what does that got to do with me? Why are you telling me this? I'm not a farmer. And 99% of whoever's watching this video doesn't even live in Israel. But for us, what is it got to do with me? Why are you telling me this? I go down to the corner of the store, to the greengrocer, give me potatoes, give me cucumbers, and they're now driving me nuts now with all this maaser. How many people really do it? So comes to the question, what does that got to do with me? Why do I need to know that Tu B'Shvat, yesterday was the cutoff date when the fruit are calculated to which year? Now, there is a great reason for that. Today I'm not going to talk about the reason why I need to know Tu Masrot, because we gave already a series of classes of that, and maybe we should do a reminder series of classes of that. But today, what I want to talk about is not to know why and when and how I have to give my Masrot. There's a much greater connection to me and Tu B'Shvat and why I need to take it. And even though Tu B'Shvat was yesterday, I still need to know it and apply it into my life. Now, when did we start celebrating Tu B'Shvat? I told you it's not a biblical holiday. Cannot be found in the Tanakh. So there has to be some type of date when we started celebrating Tu B'Shvat, because from the time of the Mishnah, which is going about 2,800 years ago, okay, that's when it was mentioned, but nobody celebrated Tu B'Shvat. They just needed to know the date for the cutoff date for Masrot and Trumot. That's it. We started celebrating Tu B'Shvat about 1,000 years ago. And when did it start? It starts, give or take, about 1,000 years ago. There was a certain great scholar, Rabbeinu Gershom Me'or HaGolah, one of the greatest leaders in the lineage of Ashkenaz. And that was about 1,000 years ago. And he came suddenly, he's a great scholar, a great authority in halakha, and he came up with a new rule that we do not fast on the 15th day of Shvat. Many times we see in history, came a great scholar, went through the entire oral Torah, and did some little additions and adjustments. So he came about 1,000 years ago and he says, this is a very special day. On auspicious days, we're not allowed to fast. We're not allowed to fast on Shabbat. Unless you had a bad dream, and then you're allowed to fast on Shabbat. It's called Ta'anit Chalom. But on Shabbat, we're not allowed to fast. I don't know if you noticed, whenever Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat, we move it to the next day. And Tisha B'Av is a severe fast. If any other fast will fall on Shabbat, Ta'anit Esther we have very soon. We just had Asara B'Tevet. All these fast days, if it falls on Shabbat, we do it the next day. This year also, Tisha B'Av, it falls on Shabbat. We're going to fast on Sunday. Hopefully we're not going to need to fast. The only time when we fast on Shabbat is, like I said, when you have a bad dream or when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbat. That's you're allowed to fast. Now, there are many other days you're not allowed to fast. On Pesach you're not allowed to fast. On Sukkot. Whenever we have an auspicious day, you're not allowed to fast. So suddenly, 1,000 years ago, Rabbi Gershom Me'or HaGolah, he says, we're not allowed to fast on Tu B'Shvat. I'm now making a new rule. Okay, everybody says, this is the great scholar. From now on, 15th day of Shvat, we're not fasting anymore. From that day, Tu B'Shvat started becoming more and more popular. So we're going about 1,000 years back, that when we started celebrating Tu B'Shvat, prior to that, there was nothing going on Tu B'Shvat. A few years later, comes the Shulchan Aruch, the Bet Yosef, which is about 500 years later. And the Bet Yosef says, not only that we're not allowed to fast on Tu B'Shvat, we don't say Tachanun on Tu B'Shvat. This was brought down La Halacha here in Tzfat, but the Bet Yosef, about 500 years ago, that he made a new rule. Tu B'Shvat, not only that we're not going to fast, we don't say Tachanun. Tachanun and Vidui, on a regular day you do, on auspicious days you don't say Tachanun. This is a part of the prayer that we add when we ask for forgiveness, when we do confession and so forth. Okay, a few years later comes another great scholar known as the Magen Avraham, and he adds on that another rule. And he says we have to celebrate on Tu B'Shvat. And Magen Avraham is one of the pillars in Halacha. Up until today, I would say that the majority of people go by the Halacha of the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham gave a few marks in Halacha, and up until today, most people follow the Magen Avraham. But nevertheless, he comes and he adds and he says, no, not only that we're not allowed to fast, and we're not allowed, and we don't say Tachanun, we have to celebrate. Okay, so we start celebrating. How do we celebrate? Bring a bunch of fruit, and we'll start eating the fruit. How do we celebrate? You know, the Tu B'Shvat is for the cut-off date for Masrot. Where do we do Masrot? Eretz Israel. Bring the 7 species of the land of Israel, and we'll eat these fruits. That's how we start. Okay, so they started about 300 years ago to eat fruit on Tu B'Shvat, specifically the 7 species. Then came later another period when they started reading a certain tikkun in Tu B'Shvat. Most people in our generation don't really do it. Yesterday, I don't know what the women did here. My wife told me the women was not so excited like we had here for the men. Sunday night was the event for the women. I was kicked out of here, so I don't know what was going on. It was wonderful, Baruch Hashem. And yesterday we had the Seder Tu B'Shvat for the men. So my wife says, yours was much better. But nevertheless, we had a beautiful meal when we did the Seder Tu B'Shvat. And we didn't do the whole tikkun, because the tikkun you read pieces from the Zohar, but we did read pieces from the Talmud, and we were explaining every species, how it's connected to the Sfirot, how it's connected to me, the Sgula in it. It was a lot of explanations. It wasn't on video, but nevertheless, it was very, very special. But some people do read the tikkun, and the tikkun has a lot of Zohar in it, that you read certain parts of the Zohar. Not a lot of people do it in our generation. Nevertheless, this is the evolution of Tu B'Shvat. 300 years ago, there is a book, Sfat Sefer Chemdat Yamim, and that's written about 300 years ago. There's a lot of controversy about this book, but because some people think that the Sfat Sefer, he says that he's a student of Rabbi Chaim Vital. There was a controversy about it. Some people thought that he's a student of Shabtai Tzvi, but nevertheless, the book is authentic. He says there in the book, there's a section called Pri Etz Adav, and he says there that we have to bring 30 types of fruit in order to eat for the Tu B'Shvat. And we do a tikkun, a certain rectification, and we eat the fruit and so forth. So this is kind of the evolution of Tu B'Shvat. Now what we do, some people what they'll go and start planting trees, which is very nice, but you can do it every day. But on Tu B'Shvat we eat from the 7 species, we read the different parts from the Talmud, some people read from the Zohar and so forth. But nevertheless comes this question that we boil down to, is why do we celebrate? I told you already, we don't have any holiday for the animals. Why do we have a holiday for the trees? I mean, maybe we should start making a holiday for the animals. We'll bring some animals, make a little petting zoo, pet them, ride on them. But nevertheless, we don't have any holidays for the animals. So why do we have a holiday for the tree? And why do we celebrate Tu B'Shvat? So it says in the Torah in the same place in the book of Dvarim, chapter 20, verse 19. This can be found in Parashat Shoftim. It says, where it says, Ki Adam U'etz HaSadeh, when the human, the man, is the tree of the field, in the same verse, it says that we're not allowed to cut the trees, the tree that bear fruit. This is where we get the source of it. But why does the Torah tell me I'm not allowed to cut a tree that bears fruit? So it says the connotation here, the connection is when you go to war. You have to read the verse, and in the verse it says when you go to war, then you can cut the tree of fruit. I'm going to war now. You think I have time when I'm going into war to start cutting trees? Now what they used to do once in wars, for us might be hard to relate, but in our day wars, if they send a missile, and the missile comes and starts destroying things, I don't know if you ever saw a battlefield, there's nothing there. Look now at pictures how Syria looks, it's all destroyed, everything is destroyed. In the olden days when they used to do wars, they used to do the same thing, just without missiles. If they would come and conquer a certain place, they would just burn the whole thing down, or destroy the whole thing. That's part of the war. That not only that you conquer the land, they would take the loot, or the women, or the people, to slaves, but they will burn everything down. So nothing changed. We do it with missiles, or with rockets, or with bombs, but when you're looking at a battlefield, or a city that was conquered, there's nothing, there's ruins. Same thing then, they used to burn everything down, burn things down, cut everything down. So the Torah says when you go to war, concentrate on the war. You don't have to kill the trees. The trees didn't do anything to you. Don't destroy trees. Leave the trees alone. You don't have to create a havoc. You don't have to destroy the place where you conquered. Conquer it and leave it alone. So the Torah gives me a very humane rule. Just do what you need to do for the war. Do not destroy the trees. Why? Because if you destroy now trees, you'll end up destroying humans. You're going to end up killing people. So that they don't need to be killed. You fight with the soldiers. Don't fight with the people. You're not going and killing people here. So the Torah says don't kill the trees because this will evolve and you're going to end up killing people at the end. Now, it actually says, this is brought down also in books of Kabbalah, it's actually dangerous to cut a tree, dangerous for you to cut a tree that bears fruit. This is brought down in Kabbalah, more Kabbalistic, but even in the Talmud, in Tractate Ta'anit, there was a great sage, Rabbi Hanina. His son died in a very early age, and when they asked him, he said because he cut down a fig tree. So this is already sourced in the Talmud, that to cut a tree that has fruit is actually dangerous for you. So not only the Torah gives it without too much explanation, it just says don't cut trees that have fruit. But we see later on that the son of Rabbi Hanina died, and Rabbi Hanina says because he cut a fig tree down. Later on it's brought down in Kabbalah that it's dangerous to actually dangerous to you. Not that the tree is going to fall on you. It's danger to you. Some acts that you do, they can cause something bad to happen. Nevertheless, we're not allowed to cut trees that bear fruit. I explained that before. The only way to do it, if you must, is to take the tree out of its ground and plant it somewhere else. Or if the tree is sick or it's a danger, then you cut it down. But other than that, you don't cut a fruit tree. And when you're looking at this rule, you see that we have some type of a mystical connection between us and trees. So what exactly is this mystical connection? Where am I connected to a tree? The Ibn Ezra says that wheat is also considered tree. Because I told you already that we're called in the Torah Ki Adam U'etz HaSadeh, because the man is the tree of the field. Very interestingly, that also the Talmud says, but the Ibn Ezra says that the wheat, because it's part of the 7 grains, this is also considered a tree. And it says in the Talmud that in Tractate Brachot that we're not allowed to eat from a tree, but which tree is referring to? To a tree of wheat. But wheat is not tree. Very interestingly, then when you look in the Talmud, when there's an argument what type of fruit was Etz Hadat, the tree of knowledge. One opinion says that it was a fig tree. And where is he basing this opinion? Because later on it says that Adam and Chava, they put leaves of fig tree and they made their clothes out of it. So he says that's the tree that they sinned with, so the tree had to cover for them. So this opinion says the tree of knowledge was a fig. Another opinion says no, it was wine, it was grapefruit. It was grapes, and Chava squeezed it, made wine, and she gave Adam, and that's the fruit of the tree of knowledge. One opinion says that the tree of knowledge was wheat. And the explanation is that once wheat was very, very high. Now it's low. But once the wheat it was much higher, much greater. And the Talmud also says, the Magen Avraham says that wheat is considered tree, is not considered grass. And this is what the Even Ezra says. And in the Talmud it says, where it says we're not allowed to eat from the tree, it's referring to the tree of wheat. Now, we also know, I spoke about before about Da'at. Da'at is part of the intelligence. When you have Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at is the comprehension that we have. A kid doesn't have Da'at. Kids, a 2-year-old will start putting things in their mouth, they don't thinking too much. What gives us Da'at? Grain. It actually says also in the oral Torah that the first time that the kid is able to just chewing any type of grain, that's when they get their Da'at. The first year, they don't even have teeth. They don't even chew anything. They will eat soft things. When do you start giving the kid grain? When there's a little bit of teeth. Or on Shabbat, you give them a little bit of a piece of challah, they put it in their mouth, it starts dissolving in the mouth. And the Talmud says the second that you give the child to eat a little bit of grain, that's when it starts operating their da'at. So, when we're looking at this connection between us and trees, and the celebration of the trees, we come to the conclusion that there is a connection between us and trees, something mystical, something a little bit more deeper than just that we give masrot and so forth. And we want to know what's this connection, because the connection is not only because yesterday was Tu B'Shvat. I was giving a class here 2 days ago. The Tu B'Shvat is the most auspicious time of the year to pray for your other half, for a person to get married. And not only that, it's the most powerful day of the year to pray for getting married, for getting pregnant, for somebody who can't get pregnant, and for a person that has, a couple that has a very bad relationship, and for Shlom Bayit, for peace between the husband and the wife. And I was quoting the Chesed LaAvraham, that he says we said a certain tikkun to say, reading the book of Dvarim and Kohelet and Shir HaShirim, to go to do it in Tveria. Anyways, I gave a whole explanation. That's in the class on Sunday. You can go and look at it online. But nevertheless, so many people, we send the message, we're going to pray, send us the names so we can pray for people. So we sent it out in emails. Today I got an email back. I got the email today, it's too late. So first of all, it's never too late. Yeah, Tu B'Shvat was yesterday, but it's never too late. So a lot of people will say, okay, Tu B'Shvat passed. Why are you now talking to me about Tu B'Shvat? Because Tu B'Shvat is maybe the day, but I want to know what's the significance, what's the connection between me and the trees and the Tu B'Shvat, or something that I can take with me for the rest of the year and for the rest of my life. So before we come to the conclusion, I will say a short story, a true story, and this will help us understand the conclusion. There was once a young man, he was 17 years old when he decided to leave his house. And this young man came from an observant family. And now when I live in Israel, it's much less, but when I lived in the States, I was a lot more involved with youth that are coming from observant families, and they're leaving the religion. What they say, off the derech, they go off the path. And I have a good rapport with youngsters, especially the ones who rebel, because I was the exact same thing. So we have a common denominator. Not only that, they feel more comfortable. All I need to do is take my shirt off. They see tattoos. Oh, he's a cool one. So Baruch Hashem, For many years I used to work with a lot of youth, different high schools and places, and youth that are on drugs and rebelling and all sorts of different problems, but specifically from observant communities. And the sad reality is that you're looking here at numbers of about 50 to 80% of the youth in religious communities are either on drugs, they're not observant, they're getting pregnant, Hashem Yerachem, all sorts of things. You couldn't even imagine that this is happening in religious communities. I mean, just the last year, there was in one shot, a few months, 53 youngsters, teenagers and youngsters from Jewish communities died from overdose. 53! This is unheard of. And I'm talking about from observant communities, Haredi, Hasidic communities, not somebody who goes to shul once a year. Talking about in places in Borough Park and Lakewood and places where people are super or ultra Orthodox. 53 deaths of kids from the ages of 16 to 22 from overdose. So the situation is much worse than what people are willing to admit. For many years it was all brushed under the carpet. Now it's starting to get a little bit more of awareness. But nevertheless, for many, many years I worked a lot with the youth. So this is a true story what I'm telling you now. This is not an invention. So there was once a young kid, was rebelling, and at some point he was 17 years old, didn't get along with the parents at all. Parents were very, very tough with him, and he was, at one point, decided he's leaving the house. And one day he gets up in the morning, he writes a note, "Shalom to my dear parents, I'm out." Goes with his friends, this was in New York, and him and a few friends, they rent an apartment in Manhattan. You know what it is for the parents now? The son takes off his yarmulke, walks around with jeans, he's living in Manhattan. That's their mind. What is he going to do there? What does a 17-year-old child do in Manhattan? You know, he doesn't go there to feed the poor. He goes there to party. Nevertheless, the parents don't know how to digest it. The mother goes to a great rabbi, and she tells the rabbi, "What did I do? Where did I mess up that my son is so resentful for the Torah, and he's so against the Torah, and he doesn't work with us? What did I do?" The rabbi tells her, "Listen, what did I do? First of all, don't take the blame on you. Maybe you are to blame, but I don't know. So it doesn't matter what you did." The rabbi tells her, what matters is more what to do. What you did, that's for you to know, not to do to the other kids if you did. But what's important is what to do. So she tells him, "What should I do?" So the rabbi tells her, "Make the Friday night dinner the most amazing experience for the kids." I'm sure a lot of you went to many families to a Friday night dinner, and usually it looks good. Nice table, and everybody's dressed nice, and a nice atmosphere, and the husband will say a few words of Torah, and maybe there's going to be some singing and good food. But this only works when you're coming as a guest. Go to the same family when there's no guests there. The Shabbat table doesn't look the same. There's screaming, there's arguments, there's disagreements. The one kid falls asleep on the couch. The father falls asleep because he's tired. And I'm telling you how it looks in real life. When you go as a guest, everybody's smiling and everything looks nice and organized. Go to an average family, Shabbat table is a chaos. But nevertheless, in this situation, the rabbi tells her, make the Shabbat table special. Okay, the next Shabbat approaches. The mother comes and tells each and one of the young kids, what is your favorite dish? Oh, I like this, I like that. Okay. Comes the Shabbat table, a miracle. Next to every plate where the kids is their favorite dish. Everything is really nice. The father took a nap so he can be all awake and focused, prepares a nice word of Torah. The whole meal was unbelievable. The father was asking the kids questions. How was school? What did you learn in school? Each one came. There's something very common that they give in observant schools, a daf kesher, where you come and the teacher will write what you learned the whole week, and you review it with the kids. And the father was asking questions, and the meal was the most pleasant, the most nice meal ever. Wow, the Kids are like, wow, that was the best Shabbat we ever had. Okay, next Shabbat, what do you know? The same miracle. The mother asks each child, what is your favorite dish? What do you want me to have around the table? And they made the table beautiful, best food, and singing, and it was the best experience. Like this it went another week, and another week, and another week. And Shabbat became the best experience the kids had. After a couple months, the kid that left the house calls home. I mean, he goes to see how's the parents doing, how's the kids. One of the siblings answers, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? And the kid that left says, no, what's going on? So the sibling that answers says, don't ask. I don't know what's going on in this house. But Shabbat became so amazing. Every Shabbat we get private special meals and everything that we want. And dad and this and that. And he starts telling how amazing the Shabbat. So the 17-year-old says, what, so dad doesn't scream at you anymore at the table? No, he's relaxed and he's fun and what? There's good food, there's this and that, and the sibling tells him, no, it's not like I was to. Something happened to mom and dad. They're calm, there's no screaming, there's no arguments, there's no disagreements, there's no this, there's no that, the food is amazing, we get what we want. So the 17-year-old says, I gotta see this. And the next Shabbat he comes home to visit. And he wants to see what's going on the Shabbat. Suddenly the Shabbat table is all nice. The father is not screaming at the kids. There's no arguments. There's no disagreements. The food is good. Everybody's around the table. Not one over here, one over there. Suddenly it was great. And a few weeks like this passed. And he made a decision and he came back to the house. So, needless to say, we're not going to now judge the family. But obviously the kid didn't have a good experience in the home. I know from my personal experience that most of these kids that go away from the path of the Torah is because either they were molested, and you'll be shocked how many of them are molested, physically, emotionally, sexually, and the rest are just neglected in many different ways. And sometimes you think that an observant family, they're in a very high level. Oh, the parents fight, the husband screams at the kids have a bad childhood, so they associate it with the Torah, and they take off. In this specific case, yeah, the Shabbat table was not so smooth and nice. It was a chaos, so it caused the kid to leave. But nevertheless, finally the kid came back. Now what do we take from that? The Torah says, Ki Adam Etz HaSadeh. The human is the tree of the field. You know how a tree grows? You have to nourish it. If you put a tree in the ground now and you leave it, nothing's going to grow. And it's not enough to just put water. You have to work around the tree. Yesterday we started learning, we're going to have to finish it today and tomorrow, about the 10 labors that the Mishnah says that you have to do in order for the tree to grow. You have to cut, you have to prune, you have to fertilize, you have to hoe, turn the ground upside down. There are 10 types of labors, and the Mishnah goes one after the other what you need to do to make the tree grow. Yesterday we went through some of them, because we were explaining the mystical part of it. Nevertheless, the tree will not grow without any type of investment. Fertilizing, cleaning the weed around, removing trees, removing any type of obstacle, nourishing it. A farmer doesn't just put the trees in the ground and leaves. This has to be an investment. And the same thing is a human being. Human beings don't grow if there's no investment. Take now a child and put him in a surrounding that there's no investment into the child, he will grow completely off the path. Doesn't matter right now, observant, not observant, Jewish, not Jewish, doesn't matter. You're raising a child, has to be investment there. The parents have to invest. If the parents don't invest in the child will not get values, not get morals, not get the right nutrition, not get education, not get anything. How many times you see kids that are neglected, and what happens to them? They become criminals, they become drug addicts, and a child also needs nourishment and an investment. I'll call it an investment because it's an investment in money, it's investment in time, it's investment in education. But you have kids, it's bringing kids to the world. It's not just bringing a kid in here. I have 3 kids. You have to nourish them, you have to give them a lot. So we are like trees. We don't grow just like that. And you know, people are sensitive. See, people need a lot of yachas, a lot of attention. People are very vulnerable. They get upset. Trees are exactly the same. If you now put a tree in the garden and you don't touch it, who says it's going to grow? It might not grow, might not make it. You have to take care of the tree. Same thing as the humans. You can't bring a child to the world and not take care of it. And even when the person is already an adult, if the person doesn't get the right attitude and hello, how are you? And people sometimes are sick, they need to be taken care of. We also need to be taken care of. So a child doesn't grow from himself. If you make an experiment, take a child out of a hospital and put him in the street, the child will grow. The first three years, the child cannot be even away from the mother. And even when the child is already 7, take a 7-year-old now, put him in the street. Can he grow? He can't do anything. He doesn't know how to take care of himself. So the same way that the child doesn't grow from himself, also the tree doesn't grow by itself. And it says in the Midrash something very, very interesting. When it comes to trees, it's a long investment. It's an investment for the long term. That's what the Midrash is. Trees is an investment to the long term. Because who says you're going to enjoy from the tree? You know, there's a very famous story with the king of Rome, Adrianos, that when it says that one time he went to a war, and as he was going to the war, he saw an old man in the land of Israel, a Jewish old man, and he was planting a tree. They told him, old man, what are you doing? He's like, I'm planting a tree. He's like, yeah, you might die tomorrow. What are you planting a tree for? You look at you, how old you are. And he told him, if Hashem will help, then I will eat from the tree. And if Hashem will not, then my kids will eat from the tree. Okay, the war was 3 years. On the way back from the war, Adrianos comes back from the war, and what do you know? He sees a beautiful tree and the old man next to the tree, eating from the tree. He was so, wow. And the old man comes and he takes a bucket, takes a lot of figs, it was a fig tree, put a lot of figs in the bucket, and he gives it to the king. He says, here, take a present, king. He was so touched that he took the bucket, he emptied the figs, he filled the bucket with gold coins, and he gave it to the person, to the old man. He was so mesmerized by the thought that if I'm not going to eat it, my kids will eat it, will eat from it. There was a neighbor that paid attention, and she saw that this old man planted the tree, and gave the figs to the king, and the king gave him a bucket of gold coins, the same bucket. So she told her husband, get up from your tuchus, you bum, go and plant a tree. Why don't you do the same thing? Why don't you go and fill up a bucket full of the fruit from the backyard, give it to the king? So her husband does it. He puts some fruit from the backyard in the bucket, goes to the king, gives the bucket to the king. The king turns around, and instead of giving him a bucket full of gold coins, he orders for him to get lashes. He says, whoa, 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 my neighbor, you gave gold coins. Why are you giving me lashes? So he says, bums, there are a lot. Atzlanim, somebody who's a atzlan, not like a bum, but a very lazy. He says, lazy people, we have a lot. But people that have a vision and they invest into the future, there's not a lot of people like that. Therefore, he got the gold, you are a bum, you're a lazy person, you get lashes. So when we go on the teachings of the Midrash that trees are an investment for the long term, this is the connection that's what I want to see. Everything that we do in this world is an investment for the long term. Whether it's me for my kids, it's an investment. Me for my relationship with my wife, or some of you, your husbands, it's an investment. Everything is a long-term investment. Also with my spiritual growth, it's a long-term investment. With my connection to God, it's a long-term investment. Everything is a long-term investment. Nothing here is from today for tomorrow. Yesterday, that's one of the things we talked about. And in the class where I was going through the 10 labors to take care of a tree. And I was explaining there that one of the labors is to expose the roots. And nevertheless, I went into more details, and we don't have time now to go into details. You can watch the class. But I was saying there that being observant or doing tshuva You don't do it in a day. It can take you 50 years. A lot of people come and they right away want to be the top-notch Jew in the world. And it doesn't work like that. And when a person becomes observant, a person converts, becomes Jewish, you can't become to the level where you want to overnight. It's years. Years and years and years. And a lot of people, what happens is they become observant. Doesn't matter from which background they come from. And within 3 months, they're like full-blown, the top-notch, observant individual. And it doesn't work like that. They fall back at some point because it has to be slowly, slowly, one step and another step and another step and another step. And this can take you years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. So the connection that we want to take from the trees, and that's something that we want to take from us, from that for the rest of our life, not only in Tu B'Shvat, don't only concentrate on Tu B'Shvat, it's for the rest of the year, is that everything that I do has to be investment in there, has to be a nourishment in there. And again, you can look at it in any type of relationship, whether it's me with my kids. You can't have a kid and say the kid will just grow by himself, and then have expectation, why is the kid not listening to me? Or he's not going in the path that I want. You have to invest in the kid 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. When they're adult, when they're 20, 30, they go and marry. Okay, that's it. Now they move on. I did what I could, and now I gave over to my kids the right education, the right morals, the right path to go on. I always tell my wife that every child that we have, I tell her we are the architects of this child's life. However we mold it, that's what's going to end up with this child. And having children is an investment. Not only, I'm not talking about the financial investment, it's an effort to give a lot of time. Don't give time to your kids. Who says they're going to ever listen to you? You know, this video running around online where you see a little kid that he comes to the father, and the father's like on a phone and a computer, and see that he's like busy, and the kid is like pulling his sleeve, and the father's like brushing him off. And then it's like fast forward, and the kid is like from 3 years old, now he becomes 5 years old, and 7 years old, and 10 years old, and 15 years old. And every time the kid, one time he comes with a fire truck, then he's a little bit older, he comes with a basketball, then he's a few years older, he comes with like a baseball bat, whatever it is. It's like a short video. The whole video is like a minute and a half. And every time the father brushes him off, you see him with a phone like this on a computer. And then the father's a little bit older, and he comes to the kid, and the kid like brushes him off. You see like the kid is already like 17 years old, like, where were you for 17 years? Now you want my attention? So, and this is just with us and kids, but it's the same thing with a husband and wife. I see so many people get married, and they get excited, they fall in love, but then they get married, and a few months later it's, wait a minute, this is not all hearts and love, and there's now deal with another individual that lives in your life, that makes a mess in your drawers. And most people in the beginning of their path, they don't get along. They right away, okay, let's get divorced. I don't like him anymore. Well, wait a minute. Why don't you give it 15 years, build the relationship, and then we'll talk. So it's the same also with marriage. It has to be an investment here. You can't just walk into the marriage and say to the spouse, that's it, I'm here, follow my rules. No, you come with your rules. She comes with her rules. And now let's see how we can emerge. And any type of relationship between me and my kids, my spouse, my boss, business, between me and Hashem, and most of it between me and myself. Any type of relationship needs a lot of nourishment, a lot of investment, a lot of patience. And this is an investment for the long run. You don't do something for now. I became now observant, not for now to get a mitzvah. It's an investment for the next 50 years that I live in this planet. And needless to say, for the future, for the world to come, for eternity. So what we want to take from that is not only because to celebrate the day of Tu B'Shvat. That was great, so we had a lot of fruit yesterday. We had a healthy meal. But we want to take from that the idea that what we're celebrating is the knowledge and the connection that, wait a minute, we're all trees. And we have to take care of each other. And any type of relationship that I have has to be invested and nourished. And that's the only way to grow a very successful and productive tree. That's why the Tu B'Shvat is about the trees that bear fruit. Because that's another thing that I was talking about yesterday. I hope you can make it to the class today and watch the video online for the one who was yesterday. But I was saying in short words that we have to be like a tree that gives fruit. If the tree doesn't give fruit, then what are you doing here? And I need to be productive in this world. Now, if I'm productive and the fruit that I give is not going to the right place, the energy that I produce goes to the other side of holiness, then I lose all this energy. I have to produce something in this world. And we called it fruit. I used the word fruit, but I explained that the Kabbalistic term to fruit is a godly revelation. Is that I do a certain act and something good has to happen from that. So I need to understand that every action that I do is in order for it to bear fruit. If I'm now invested, I want to have an orchard of oranges, and I go and buy a land and I plant now 1,000 trees. You know, it's going to take many years before I make money. I know of a certain individual that went to some place in Central America and they invested this exorbitant amount, $15-20 million in planting a lot of trees. And he told me the investment will only going to come back in 10 years. Then because we're going to have a cycle that we constantly plant trees, cutting them, planting trees, cutting them, a certain type of tree. And he says the investment only will come in 10 years when we start going into a cycle. So we have to understand that everything in life, not everything, but the things that are important, there are long-term investments. And you can't get the reward right away. The fruits don't come out right away. Like I said now, you get a land and plant 1,000 trees. You're not going to get the fruit right away. It can take 5-6 years before the trees grow, before they start bearing fruit. Half of them will be destroyed because there's going to be a cold winter. This has to be an investment. And then down the line, you have an orchard, a big field with trees, and you have fruit. So everything that we look in life that we want it to bear fruit, relationships and so forth, it has to be an investment for the long run. Nothing here is from here to tomorrow. And this is the significance of the holiday of Tu B'Shvat, and not only that, our connection to the trees, and that's why we celebrate. So for us to understand that we also have it, that we are like trees. We are the tree of the field, and we also bear fruit. Not the fruit that you necessarily eat, but whatever I do, I want my actions to bear fruit. Whether it's my kids, whether it's my business, whether it's my mitzvot. If I do something and there's no expectation or there's no work towards for it to bear fruit, then why are you doing it? It's energy that's going to waste. So B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we can take this few small details and apply it in our life to understand that I need patience. And sometimes things take time, especially in relationships. I see so many young couples that right away they want to get divorced. Wait a minute, you're married for 3 months. That's it. A little bit of mess on the floor, and that's it. You saw the person in the morning with no makeup. That's it, a divorce right away. Well, why don't you give it a few years? And in 10 years of hard work, then you'll get to have a good relationship. And if you don't invest in your marriage, who says it's going to be successful? Because you fell in love 20 years ago. Things change after you fall in love. You know, the falling in love is just to put you together to come to the conclusion that you want to proceed. But marriage is not easy. It has to be an investment. And you know, when you see it 10 years, 15 years after, you say, wow, you know, the investment was worth it. Now look what we did. And that can be in business too, but most important in our relationship with Hashem. People come to the world of the Torah from all walks of life, and they think that within 3 months, that's it. They're going to see sparks in the sky. People don't understand. People come to the Torah and they think that they're going to be the next Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Well, I'm doing mitzvot already for a whole year. I'm not getting anything here. What are you expecting to get? You think you're going to learn Torah and right away you're going to get it like that? It took me 3 years to break this cement wall that I had. 3 years I sat in the yeshiva like with my mouth open, like, oh, what is he talking about? I didn't get nothing. And I didn't consider myself as an ignorant individual. And I couldn't get anything. It was like a cement wall there. It took a long time. The example that I gave yesterday, I'm sure you remember the famous story with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva became observant and learned when he was 40 years old. He was in a yeshiva with little kids. They would laugh at him. And he didn't get nothing. Complete ignorance. And he was about to give up. And one day he noticed, because he was a shepherd, there was a stream of water coming, and it was falling on a rock. One drop, another drop, another drop, another drop. But there was at the end a hole in the rock. And he realized, look at that, when you are persistent, and one drop and after the other, finally it will make a hole in the rock. Now hypothetically, if you would take all this water that was dripping on the rock for many, many years to create a hole, let's say you evaluate it as 1,000 gallons. Okay? Now, if you take now 1,000 gallons and throw it on the rock in one shot, would it make that same hole? No. But it's the same 1,000 gallons. This one comes in one wave, and on the other hand, it comes in 40 years, drop, drop, drop. It doesn't have the same effect. When it comes one drop after the other, that's when it makes the hole. Same thing with us. You can't take something and in one shot, throw at it the best shot, and it will work. It's not going to work like that. One drop, another day, another day. So that's what we want to take from that everything that we do, we have to look at it as a long-term investment. And everything that I want to look at as a long-term investment has to be an investment there of my time, of my money, of my thought, of my patience. It doesn't work the first time, not the second time, not the third time. Ever saw somebody putting a nail in the wall in one shot? You need to bang on it a lot of times. And half of the time it becomes crooked and on your hand, and then you have to... I've never seen anybody taking a nail and putting it in one shot in the wall. So everything that we do, unless you have a nail gun. But nevertheless, that's the loophole. But we're here with a nail and a hammer. What we want to take from that everything in our life, we have to look at it as the investment. I'm invested here. I can't expect things to work like that with no investment. Has to be nourishment, has to be love, attention, patience, time. There's going to be good times, there's going to be hard times. But eventually, if you do all that, then you will bear fruit to it.